Oh, everyone is gone. Gavin is gone. Court will now reconvene. Defense Attorney Christoph Gavin, will you please take the stand? This is gonna get intense. I'm gonna save really quick. Save. Okay. Now then, if you would, Mr. Payne. Yes, Your Honor. Well, Mr. The witness state his name and occupation. Is this farce necessary, Your Honor? Believe me, far stranger things have gone on in this courtroom. We had to cross-examine a parrot, for example. Fine, I'll play along. First, there is one thing we need to have made clear. How did you know about the secret beneath the victim's hat? Huh? He's sensitive about his head. By secret, I'm guessing he means the fact that Mr. Smith was bald. Forgive my curiosity, but what is it about this fellow's head? Your Honor seems to have an inordinate interest in it. I wouldn't call it inordinate, Mr. Gavin. Oh, he looks so good. Mr. Wright, what do you think you're doing, Wright? That's my spot. Wow, things sure look different from the other side. You know what I mean, Apollo. Speaking of looking on the other side, let's consider something for a second. The victim wore that hat all night, never once taking it off, except for that one time. That one time, being the instant he was hit. Oh! When Mr. Wright returned from reporting the crime, the hat was lying on the floor. How do we know this? Do we just go by Mr. Wright's word? Maybe he took it off sometime in the night. We don't know. Get Miss Aurelia back up here. Did she see him? Mr. Wright picked it up and placed it on the victim's head. In other words, in order to have seen Mr. Smith's bald head, you would have had to have been at the scene of the crime, at the time of the crime. In other words, you would have to be the real killer. Is that what you're trying to say? Not bad, Apollo. Mr. Gavin? I'm afraid that I haven't been entirely honest with the court. See, now I just want to know why he killed him. What did that dude ever do? Besides cheat. What? I think it's so funny that Payne is part of this huge court case, because he's usually not. Oh, I assure you, I had the noblest of intentions. Is he gonna confess? I did it all to protect my client, Mr. Wright. Oh shit, is he gonna confess? Yet, I'm afraid in the current situation, I see little reason to hide anything. Very well. Allow me to tell you the truth of what happened that night. Finally, you may begin your testimony. Tell us, how were you involved in the events that fateful night? Witness testimony. That fateful night. Are we gonna get a confession? The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. It must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead as he appears in the photo. A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. I sensed this was not the best place for me to be at the time, so I left. That's when the call came from Wright. So, you witnessed the murder? For better or for worse, I miss the actual moment of the deed. Mr. Gavin, may I remind you that you are on Mr. Wright's defense team. Your testimony is clearly disadvantaged to your client. What else could I say? I'm standing on the witness stand after all. So you are, Mr. Gavin. And you had to testify as you just did. You had to tell them you saw the scene of the crime through that little window. Mr. Wright? You had to say that, because that was the only probable window of opportunity. Right, Apollo? Oh! Mr. Wright, the defense should do the cross-examination, not the defendant. Mr. Justice, are you prepared? Yes, Your Honor. I feel like Apollo should be... okay. He should be a little more distressed that he's gonna accuse his chief of murdering someone. I can't believe I'm going up against Mr. Gavin. This trial is getting weirder and weirder. It's only gonna get weirder. Cross-examination, that fateful night. The rage I sensed in that man was troubled me, so I returned to the club. That man, you mean Mr. Smith? He was different from the other customers. His aura, shall we say. I knew he was a serious poker player, but it was more than that. So then you knew the true nature of your client's job. Of course. But I also knew he wasn't engaged in gambling, which would be illegal. Well, it makes sense that he'd know. They were friends, after all. Not very good friends, it seems. One of them accused the other of murdering him. I worried for my friend, so I returned to the club. You see, I feared this Mr. Smith might be someone coming to settle an old score. I see. What happened then? I went down to the basement and peeked through the little window to the hideout. The little window? You mean the one used to keep watch up the stairs? Yes, a relic of the ancient past. The Black Musketeers used it, I believe. Why did you go through the trouble of peeking in through the window? Wouldn't it have been easier to just open the door and go into the room? I didn't want to upset Wright, you see. Upset Mr. Wright? Yes. If my fears had been unfounded. What if my fears had been unfounded? I'd be walking in on their match. Bad form, to say the least. So far everything he's saying makes sense. Must have been right after the murder took place. Why? Just give me a time so I can prove you wrong with the autopsy report. How do you know it was right after the murder? Really, no need to shout, Justice. Oh. How did you know it was right after the murder? I was just getting to that part in my testimony. There he is. The coolest defense in the West. We know and love. Even when you're standing up on the witness stand, some things never change. I'm getting a little lightheaded from talking so much. Because Kristoff's voice kind of uses a lot of air. Okay. I was afraid you'd change too, Wright. But you haven't. You and that overbearing personality of yours. With friends like these, who needs enemies? The victim was dead as he appears in the photo. By photo, you mean the second photograph of the crime scene. Precisely. You see, he wasn't wearing his hat then. I saw his head when he was dead. And then Mr. Wright came along and replaced his hat. Can you describe the scene of the crime for us? A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. Those were the only 3 at the scene of the crime. Yes, as far as I saw, at least. Then we're back where we started. The killer was the defendant, Phoenix Wright. Who else could it have been? But why didn't you talk to the police? 2 reasons. First, I didn't actually witness the very moment of the crime. Second, my office was asked to defend Wright. Even after seeing what I had seen, I couldn't abandon my friend. There must have been someone else there at the moment of the crime. Just as I just said, I saw no one. Not a soul. But that goes against that goes against what Mr. Wright said. Ah, yes. This mysterious 4th person. Who would conveniently be the real killer, I suppose? Glad to see we agree, Mr. Gavin. Let me pose a question, then. Tell me, what possible reason did the real killer have to swap the cards in the victim's hand? Perhaps you can show us a reason why such a thing would be necessary. How can I show something I can't find myself? Remember, Apollo, the card was swapped out. The card that was swapped out was the 5th ace. The 5th ace, right. Well, Mr. Justice, the question of why the killer would swap out a card has been raised. Can you point out a reason? Yeah, I can. I have the 5th ace. Hopefully this is what I'm supposed to do. It's now or never. The defense would like to present evidence to the court. Evidence showing the reason why a card was swapped out. Then go ahead and point out your reason, Mr. Justice. Why did the killer take the 5th ace? Because his blood was on it. Can I check it? Let me check it first. Hold on a second, Judge. Let me just, check it for a second. A single drop of blood marks the front of the card. It is also red, but I can't examine it. Okay, that seems to be the only thing I can examine. So let's show it. And I'm right. I'm always right. Damn. The reason is, this. Is that an ace? Why? Why, it's got blood on it. Right next to the spade. What? This is insane. Why wasn't I told about this? Why? Could this be the missing 5th ace? See, I'm wondering what I'm gonna do. How am I gonna do Kristoff's mad voice? Okay, let me figure it out. Inconceivable. How could you? What are you doing with that card? Well, that's the thing. Why is Mr. Gavin so upset? Oh, did you see his hair pop up? Oh, that's so cute. It's just a fishy card from some fishy girl. Oh, that card? It's mine. And that is, I picked it up at the Borscht Bowl Club that night after the murder had occurred. I gave it to my daughter. Cards are her stock in trade, after all. Is she a poker player, too? No, impossible, unacceptable. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? What? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene. The real killer. Allow me to elaborate. Allow me to elaborate. He looks really good in this angle. Oh my god, his hat says Papa on it. Oh, did his daughter make that? Oh, that's so cute. Everything's either pretty or really cute in this game, so far. Murder. Adorable. What if this trace of blood was the reason? The reason for the killer to take the card from the scene of the crime. Where are you going with this? Take another look at the photo, and at the victim's head. At the moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from his forehead down the back of his head. It couldn't a drop of that blood have fallen in one of the cards? I suppose. Where's this going? A killer then took the card to hide the blood. Regardless, that evidence is non-permissible. Oh. Right. Regardless of how you wasted the last 7 years, you used to be a lawyer. I just changed his voice for there. You know what serious crime it is to conceal evidence. Oh, we can discuss the finer points of our legal system later. What's important now is that I've answered your question. What are you talking about? You wanted to know why the killer would have taken a card from the crime scene. And now, I've told you. The one drop of blood would have been decisive evidence, you see. This is baseless conjecture. Baseless! That's so wonderful. This trial is just so full of wonderful callbacks. I am really getting lightheaded. I don't know if it is really hot in my room. I had to close all the windows and doors to keep out noise, and I can't have my fan on because it's noisy. God, it's really hot. Okay. Oh, I assure you, it's quite base. What? It's amazing, really, how a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the truth. It's quite simple. Well, Apollo? Yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime. In your head. Oh, so is this like my power? I can see things three-dimensionally or in a different angle. The murder took place at the hideout. The body of the luckless victim was found at the poker table, and before the killer swapped the card out, there was a single card with a drop of blood on it in the victim's hand. Given this, there is one decisive problem with the scene. Well, what is it? Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on the card, whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses? Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? What? Well, wait, okay. So I have to figure out whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card. What? They could see the bloody card? That the blood would land on the card? What? I'm so confused right now. Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? Okay, so there was a card on the floor, somewhere around the victim, and then blood dripped onto the... Oh, so is it saying who couldn't have seen it? So then what purpose would he have to take it? No. Wait. I'm gonna go with the second person. Because they couldn't have seen the bloody card. Because... Right? Let's just go with it. I was apparently right. Okay. The second the second witness's position is the problem. The second witness? That would be Mr. Gavin, yes. The second witness's position is far less problematic than yours right now, Justice. Or perhaps perilous is the better word. I cannot see what the bloodstained card has to do with the second witness's location. Oh! I was wrong, apparently. Your Honor, one more chance, please. I suppose. Do you think it's over, Mr. Justice? Do you think it over, Mr. Justice? Let's keep it simple. Oh, let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on the card, whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witness. Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? So so if it wasn't the second person, I have no idea who it is. I think I have enough chances to guess all of them if I'm wrong in each one of them. If not, I can always just save. But, whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? I don't understand what this question is asking me. I'm just gonna go with the victim. Okay, I guess I was wrong. Or maybe I am. Okay. Well, look, the victim was struck on the head, sending him back in his chair. You'd think blood would fall behind the body, not onto the table in front of him. Oh, but I thought the cards fell on the floor. That was why the blood... Whatever. Take a look at the photo again. If you bled in this position, the blood would have fallen on the floor, not on the cards. Why, that's right. So what does this mean? Incidentally, we were sitting in swivel chairs. Swivel chairs? Oh, man. Apollo, try turning the chair around. Oh, whoa. Interesting. The chair was facing the other way? It would have to be. This is 3D. 3D. Oh, I didn't know I was going to... The victim's chair was facing away from the table. When Mr. Wright returned from informing the police, which way was the chair facing? When I came back to the room, the body was facing as it's seen in the photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. We know the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder. But this creates another significant contradiction. Oh, again? Let's test your reasoning skills again, shall we? Apollo, whose location on this diagram contradicts our new understanding of the crime? The Whose location creates a contradiction if the victim was facing away? The killer. I guess. Sure. The victim was struck from the front, correct? Indeed. Well, wouldn't it be hard for the killer to hit him from the front? Sitting where his indicator currently is? I would think it's quite hard, yes. Yes, but what you're saying makes no sense. Why would the victim suddenly turn to face the wall in the middle of a game? I believe a sufficient reason will soon come to light. What? There's something in this diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look again at the diagram. Apollo, if the victim was struck while he was sitting shown here, where would his assailant be standing? Try marking it on the diagram. What? But there's no room to put a mark where the killer should be. Don't worry. Let's think it through and see what we find. We know the victim was facing towards the wall at the time of the crime. That's the only thing we know for sure. Try to forget about everything else. Where would the killer be standing to strike our victim from the front? Well, I guess here. He said forget about everything else, so I'm assuming that means forget that this thing is here. But let's go with it. The killer had to be standing well here. You get points for flair, when that's all about you get. I thought I was onto something there too. I hardly need to point out that standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Or are you claiming that the killer climbed the cupboard and hit him from above? Huh? It's simple logic, really. If this was the only place the killer could have been standing, then that means that at that very moment of the crime... Wait! I know! At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there. What's this now? I mean, that's the only explanation, right, Mr. Gavin? Your Honor, I have a suggestion for the defense. We should arrange to examine the cupboard in the hideout immediately. Bailiff, send your team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to move the cupboard. Your Honor.
What?
There was one more thing your men should look for. Please give this to the bailiff.
Yes, I see. You do belong in the courtroom after all, Mr. Wright.
I do my best.